Today, we explore one of the most feared and mysterious places in the world, a prison so harsh that many describe it as the place where hope goes to die. Deep within Russia's vast and unforgiving landscape are prisons designed to isolate society's most dangerous criminals. Among them are facilities known for extreme security, strict discipline, and conditions that have shocked observers around the world. These prisons are often located in remote regions surrounded by forests, snow, and harsh weather. Their isolation serves a purpose. Escape is nearly impossible, and contact with the outside world is severely limited. For many inmates, the prison walls are not just physical barriers, but symbols of a life permanently cut off from freedom. Life inside such prisons follows a rigid routine. Every movement is monitored. Prisoners spend long hours in small cells, often under constant surveillance. Daily life is governed by strict rules, and any violation can result in punishment. The psychological impact of such confinement can be immense, affecting mental health and creating a sense of hopelessness among inmates. The history of Russia's prison system stretches back centuries. From the era of the Russian Empire to the Soviet Gulag system and into modern times, punishment and exile have played significant roles in the country's approach to criminal justice. Some modern prisons are built on this legacy, carrying forward traditions of strict control and isolation. Human rights organizations have raised concerns about conditions in certain facilities. Reports have highlighted issues such as limited contact with family, harsh disciplinary measures, and the effects of prolonged isolation. Russian authorities, however, argue that these institutions are necessary for managing dangerous offenders and maintaining security. What makes these prisons especially fascinating is not only their harshness, but also the stories of the people inside them. Some inmates are serving life sentences for serious crimes, knowing they may never experience freedom again. Their lives become a daily struggle against loneliness, regret, and the passage of time. The prison environment also affects those who work there. Guards and staff operate in demanding conditions, balancing security responsibilities with the challenges of managing high-risk prisoners. The atmosphere can be tense, and every day requires vigilance. Beyond the prison walls lies a larger question about justice and punishment. Should prisons focus solely on punishment, or should they also aim for rehabilitation? Can a person truly change in an environment built around isolation and control? These questions continue to spark debate around the world. Russia's most brutal prisons serve as powerful reminders of the extremes of incarceration. They reveal how societies deal with crime, punishment, and public safety. Whether viewed as necessary institutions or symbols of excessive harshness, they remain among the most notorious prisons on earth. As we conclude, we are left to reflect on the meaning of justice, the value of human dignity, and the consequences of a system where hope itself can seem distant. The story of Russia's most brutal prisons is not just about walls, bars, and cells. It is about the human experience under some of the harshest conditions imaginable. One of the most striking features of Russia's most brutal prisons is their location. Many of these facilities are deliberately built in some of the country's most remote and inhospitable regions, far from major cities and population centers. Surrounded by dense forests, frozen tundra, rugged mountains, or vast stretches of wilderness, these prisons are often accessible only by long road journeys, rail routes, or limited transportation networks. The extreme isolation serves multiple purposes, making escape attempts extraordinarily difficult while also separating inmates from the outside world. The harsh climate adds another layer of punishment. In many regions, winter temperatures can plunge far below freezing, with heavy snowfall, icy winds, and long periods of darkness dominating daily life. These environmental conditions create significant challenges, not only for prisoners but also for prison staff and visiting family members. The surrounding wilderness itself becomes a natural barrier, as anyone attempting to flee would face dangerous terrain, severe weather, and vast distances before reaching civilization. For inmates, the remote location means that maintaining contact with loved ones can be extremely difficult. Family members may need to travel hundreds or even thousands of kilometers to visit, often at considerable financial and personal cost. As a result, Many prisoners experience long periods without seeing relatives or friends, deepening feelings of loneliness and separation. Communication with the outside world becomes limited, reinforcing the sense that the prison exists in a world entirely apart from normal society. These isolated locations also contribute to the psychological atmosphere within the prison. Knowing that freedom lies far beyond endless forests, frozen landscapes, or empty wilderness can create a powerful feeling of confinement. The environment constantly reminds inmates that they are cut off from everyday life, with nature itself acting as an additional layer of security beyond the prison walls, fences, watchtowers, and armed guards. The combination of physical isolation, extreme weather, and distance from civilization has made these prisons some of the most feared correctional facilities in the world. Russia's most notorious prisons are designed with one primary objective: absolute control. These facilities operate under some of the strictest security measures in the world and are reserved for inmates considered the highest risk to society. Many of the prisoners housed in these institutions have been convicted of serious offenses such as multiple murders, terrorism-related crimes, organized criminal activity, or other violent acts that resulted in lengthy or life sentences. Because of the nature of the crimes committed, prison authorities maintain an environment where security takes priority over everything else. The physical design of these prisons reflects this mission. Massive concrete walls, multiple layers of steel fencing, surveillance cameras, watchtowers, reinforced cell doors, and heavily guarded checkpoints create a system intended to eliminate any possibility of escape. Every section of the facility is carefully monitored, and movement throughout the prison is tightly controlled. Inmates are often escorted by guards whenever they leave their cells, even for routine activities such as medical appointments, exercise periods, or transfers within the facility. Inside the prison, strict regulations govern nearly every aspect of daily life. Prisoners are expected to follow detailed rules regarding behavior, movement, communication, and personal conduct. Any violation can result in disciplinary measures, including loss of privileges or increased restrictions. The constant enforcement of rules is intended to maintain order and prevent violence, unrest, or attempts to challenge prison authority. Surveillance plays a major role in maximum security operations. Guards monitor inmate activities around the clock, while cameras observe corridors, exercise yards, and other areas of the facility. In some prisons, inmates spend much of their time under direct observation, creating an environment where privacy is almost non-existent. This level of monitoring is designed to detect potential security threats before they develop into larger incidents. The inmates themselves often live under highly restrictive conditions. Many are housed in small cells with limited opportunities for interaction. Their schedules are structured down to the smallest detail, with designated times for meals, exercise, inspections, and other daily activities. The purpose of this structure is to reduce unpredictability and maintain complete institutional control over the prison population. Security procedures extend beyond the prison walls as well. Incoming mail, packages, and visitors are often subject to thorough inspections. Staff members undergo extensive training to manage dangerous offenders and respond to emergencies. Every aspect of the institution is organized around minimizing risks and ensuring that those housed within remain securely confined under constant supervision. One of the harshest aspects of Russia's most brutal prisons is the extreme isolation experienced by many inmates. Unlike ordinary correctional facilities where prisoners may have regular interaction with others, some high-security Russian prisons severely limit social contact. The goal is to maintain strict control, reduce the risk of violence, and prevent inmates from organizing criminal activities while incarcerated. However, the result is an environment where human interaction becomes a rare and highly regulated part of daily life. Many prisoners spend the majority of their time inside small cells, often shared with only one other inmate or, in some cases, occupied alone. Hours, days, and even years can pass with very little meaningful conversation. Daily routines are repetitive and controlled, with limited opportunities to engage with other prisoners. Meals, inspections, exercise periods, and other activities occur according to rigid schedules that leave little room for personal choice or social interaction. Communication with the outside world is also heavily restricted. Visits from family members may be infrequent due to the prison's remote location, strict regulations, and the difficulty of long-distance travel. For some inmates, months can pass between visits, while others may rarely see loved ones at all. Letters and approved communications often become the primary connection to family and friends, making every piece of correspondence extremely important. The emotional impact of being separated from loved ones for extended periods can be profound, particularly for those serving life sentences. The physical environment itself reinforces the feeling of isolation. Thick walls, locked doors, barred windows, and constant surveillance create a sense of separation from the outside world. Inmates may hear little beyond the sounds of guards, distant doors closing, or the routine noises of prison life. The outside world can begin to feel distant and almost unreal, especially for prisoners who have spent many years under such conditions. Psychologists and researchers have long studied the effects of prolonged isolation on human beings. Extended periods with limited social contact can contribute to feelings of loneliness, anxiety, depression, and emotional distress. Some prisoners report losing track of time, while others struggle with maintaining a sense of identity and purpose. The absence of normal social relationships can make everyday existence feel repetitive and emotionally draining. For life-sentenced inmates, the psychological weight of isolation can become even heavier. Knowing that years or decades may pass under the same restrictive conditions creates a unique mental challenge. The routine rarely changes, the environment remains largely the same, and opportunities for new experiences are extremely limited. In such circumstances, many prisoners develop personal coping mechanisms, relying on reading, writing, exercise, religious practice, or quiet reflection to endure the passage of time. Isolation in these prisons is not simply a matter of being physically confined. It is a condition that affects nearly every aspect of an inmate's existence, shaping daily routines, emotional well-being, relationships, and perceptions of the world beyond the prison walls. The combination of limited human contact, restricted communication, and separation from society makes extreme isolation one of the defining characteristics of Russia's most feared correctional institutions. Life inside Russia's most brutal prisons is governed by an extremely strict daily routine designed to maintain order, discipline, and complete institutional control. From the moment inmates wake up until the lights are turned off at night, nearly every minute of their day is scheduled and monitored. Personal freedom is reduced to the bare minimum, and prisoners are expected to follow a rigid structure that rarely changes from one day to the next. This predictable routine becomes the framework around which their entire existence revolves. The day typically begins early, often with a wake-up call followed by inspections conducted by prison staff. Inmates are required to make their beds, clean their living spaces, and prepare for official checks. Guards closely examine cells to ensure that regulations are being followed and that no prohibited items are present. Even minor details may be subject to inspection, reinforcing the message that every aspect of prison life is under constant supervision. Meals are served at designated times and are often one of the few events that break up the monotony of the day. Prisoners are expected to follow strict procedures during meal distribution, with little opportunity for deviation from established rules. The schedule for eating, exercising, working, and resting is carefully controlled, leaving inmates with very limited ability to make decisions about how they spend their time. Movement throughout the facility is heavily regulated. Prisoners cannot simply walk from one area to another whenever they choose. Transfers between locations such as exercise yards, medical units, visitation rooms, or administrative offices are usually conducted under escort and according to predetermined procedures. Guards monitor these movements closely to prevent security breaches and maintain strict control over inmate activities. Exercise periods, when permitted, often occur at fixed times and for limited durations. In some facilities, inmates may spend time in enclosed exercise yards surrounded by high walls and security barriers. These periods provide a brief opportunity for physical activity and fresh air, but they remain tightly supervised and carefully managed. Every action is conducted within a system designed to eliminate unpredictability. For many prisoners, work assignments or educational activities may form part of the daily routine. However, participation depends on the specific institution, security classification, and prison regulations. Even these activities are organized according to strict schedules, with attendance, performance, and behavior closely monitored by prison authorities. The repetitive nature of the routine can have a powerful psychological effect. Days often blend together because the schedule changes so little over time. The same wake-up times, inspections, meals, and activities repeat again and again, creating an environment where the passage of time can feel slow and monotonous. Some inmates describe life as existing within a cycle that rarely offers variety or unexpected experiences. Discipline is enforced through a detailed system of rules and regulations. Prisoners are expected to maintain proper conduct, follow instructions immediately, and adhere to institutional requirements at all times. Failure to comply may result in disciplinary measures, including restrictions on privileges or additional monitoring. This constant emphasis on obedience reinforces the authority of the prison administration and helps maintain the highly controlled environment. The strict daily routine serves as one of the most important tools of prison management. By regulating behavior, controlling movement, and structuring every part of the day, authorities create an environment where order is maintained through consistency and supervision. For inmates, this routine becomes an unavoidable reality, shaping their habits, thoughts, and experiences throughout their years of incarceration. The psychological impact of incarceration in Russia's most brutal prisons is often considered one of the most severe consequences of life behind bars. While the physical barriers of walls, steel doors, and security systems are immediately visible, the mental and emotional effects of living under such restrictive conditions can be far more profound. For many inmates, the greatest challenge is not simply surviving the prison environment, but coping with the long-term psychological pressures that come with years of confinement, isolation, and uncertainty. Living in a highly controlled environment can gradually alter the way a person thinks and experiences the world. Every aspect of daily life is dictated by prison regulations, leaving little room for personal choice or independence. Decisions that most people make without thinking, when to eat, where to go, how to spend free time, are determined by institutional schedules. Over time, this lack of autonomy can create feelings of helplessness and dependence on the prison system, making it difficult for inmates to maintain a sense of personal control over their lives. Isolation plays a major role in shaping mental health within these facilities. Limited interaction with family, friends, and society can lead to intense feelings of loneliness. Human beings are naturally social creatures, and prolonged separation from meaningful relationships can have significant emotional consequences. Some inmates experience a growing sense of detachment from the outside world, feeling as though life beyond the prison walls continues without them. As years pass, maintaining emotional connections becomes increasingly difficult, especially for those serving lengthy or life sentences. The repetitive nature of prison life can also affect psychological well-being. When days, months, and years follow nearly identical routines, time may begin to lose its usual meaning. Many prisoners describe life as existing in a cycle where little changes and few significant events occur. This monotony can create feelings of emptiness, boredom, and emotional exhaustion. Without new experiences or opportunities for personal growth, inmates may struggle to find motivation and purpose in their daily lives. Anxiety is another common challenge. Prisoners often live under constant observation and strict regulations, knowing that their actions are continually monitored. The pressure of adapting to institutional rules, avoiding disciplinary violations, and navigating the prison environment can create ongoing stress. In maximum security facilities, where security concerns dominate daily operations, the atmosphere may feel tense and unforgiving, adding to the psychological burden experienced by inmates. For prisoners serving life sentences, the emotional weight can be particularly heavy. The realization that freedom may never return forces many individuals to confront difficult questions about their future, identity, and place in the world. Some struggle with feelings of hopelessness, regret, or despair as they contemplate spending decades within the same walls. The passage of time can become especially painful when inmates witness major life events, such as family milestones, the aging of loved ones, or changes in society, from a distance they cannot bridge. Mental health challenges may also emerge as a result of prolonged confinement. Some prisoners report difficulties with concentration, memory, and emotional regulation after years in restrictive environments. Others experience depression, chronic stress, or a diminished ability to trust and communicate with others. The absence of normal social interactions and everyday experiences can gradually affect how individuals perceive themselves and the world around them. To cope with these pressures, many inmates develop personal strategies for maintaining psychological stability. Reading, writing, exercise, religious faith, education, and creative pursuits often become important sources of structure and meaning. These activities provide mental stimulation and help break the monotony of prison life, offering prisoners a way to preserve a sense of identity despite the restrictions surrounding them. The psychological impact of Russia's most brutal prisons extends far beyond the physical experience of incarceration. It influences thoughts, emotions, relationships, and perceptions of time itself. In an environment defined by control, isolation, and routine, the struggle to maintain mental resilience becomes one of the most significant challenges faced by those living behind the prison walls. The modern Russian prison system cannot be fully understood without examining its long and complex historical legacy. The foundations of many current correctional practices can be traced back centuries, through periods of imperial rule, revolutionary upheaval, Soviet governance, and the modern Russian state. Throughout these different eras, imprisonment was often used not only as a means of punishing criminals, but also as a tool for maintaining political control, enforcing authority, and managing populations across one of the largest countries in the world. During the era of the Russian Empire, exile was a common form of punishment. Individuals convicted of crimes were frequently sent to distant regions such as Siberia, a vast territory known for its harsh climate and immense distances. The journey itself could take months and was often as feared as the sentence that awaited at the destination. Exile removed prisoners from society, while simultaneously helping populate and develop remote territories. Over time, Siberia became closely associated with punishment, hardship, and isolation, a reputation that continues to influence perceptions of Russian prisons today. The 19th century saw the expansion of penal colonies and labor camps throughout remote regions of the empire. Prisoners were often required to perform physically demanding work under difficult conditions. These institutions reflected the belief that punishment and labor should be closely connected. The concept of sending offenders far from major population centers became deeply embedded within the country's penal traditions, shaping correctional policies for generations. The Russian Revolution of 1917 and the rise of the Soviet Union brought dramatic changes to the prison system. Under Soviet rule, a vast network of labor camps, known as the Gulag system, emerged. These camps became one of the most significant and controversial elements of Soviet history. Millions of people passed through the Gulag over several decades, including convicted criminals, political prisoners, dissidents, and individuals accused of offenses against the state. Many camps were located in extremely remote regions where prisoners worked in mining, construction, forestry, and other labor-intensive industries. The harsh conditions associated with the Gulag system left a lasting mark on both Russian society and international perceptions of imprisonment in the country. Although the Soviet labor camp network was eventually dismantled and reformed, its legacy continues to influence discussions about incarceration, state authority, and human rights. The memory of these institutions remains an important part of Russia's historical narrative and continues to be studied by historians around the world. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, Russia inherited a prison infrastructure that required significant modernization and reform. Authorities introduced changes aimed at improving conditions, updating regulations, and aligning aspects of the correctional system with contemporary legal standards. Despite these efforts, many prisons retained characteristics that reflected older traditions, including strict discipline, remote locations, and a strong emphasis on security and control. The architecture of some modern facilities also reflects historical influences. Certain prisons occupy sites that have been used for incarceration for decades, while others continue practices rooted in earlier correctional philosophies. The emphasis on order, discipline, and isolation can often be linked to historical experiences that shaped the development of the Russian penal system over many generations. Cultural attitudes toward punishment have likewise been influenced by history. Throughout different periods, imprisonment was frequently viewed as a means of protecting society through strict control rather than focusing primarily on rehabilitation. While modern debates increasingly address issues such as prisoner rights, reintegration, and mental health, historical traditions continue to influence public perceptions and institutional practices. The historical legacy of Russia's prison system is therefore not confined to the past. It remains visible in the locations of prisons, the structure of correctional institutions, the methods of administration, and the broader debates surrounding crime and punishment. Centuries of political, social, and legal developments have shaped a system that carries traces of imperial exile, Soviet labor camps, and modern security-focused corrections, creating a unique and often controversial place within the history of incarceration. Human rights concerns have long been a significant topic of discussion when examining some of Russia's most notorious prisons. International organizations, legal experts, journalists, and advocacy groups have frequently scrutinized conditions within certain correctional facilities, raising questions about the treatment of inmates and the balance between security and human dignity. While prison authorities emphasize the importance of maintaining order and controlling dangerous offenders, critics argue that some practices may have serious physical and psychological consequences for those held behind bars. One of the most commonly discussed issues is the use of prolonged isolation and restrictive housing conditions. In maximum security institutions, prisoners may spend extended periods confined to small cells with limited opportunities for social interaction. Human rights advocates argue that long-term isolation can negatively affect mental health, contributing to anxiety, depression, emotional distress, and other psychological difficulties. The concern is not only about physical confinement but also about the impact of reduced human contact over many years. Access to healthcare is another area that often attracts attention. In any prison system, medical care is essential because inmates rely entirely on the institution for treatment. Human rights organizations have sometimes expressed concerns about the availability of medical services, the quality of care provided, and the ability of prisoners to receive timely treatment for physical or mental health conditions. The challenges can be especially significant in remote prisons, where distance and limited resources may complicate access to specialized healthcare. Living conditions within certain facilities have also been the subject of criticism. Reports have occasionally highlighted concerns related to overcrowding, sanitation, ventilation, and the overall quality of prison infrastructure. Although conditions vary widely between institutions, critics argue that every prisoner should be housed in an environment that meets basic standards of health, safety, and human dignity regardless of the crimes they have committed. Communication with family members represents another important human rights issue. Maintaining relationships with loved ones is widely regarded as a key factor in supporting emotional well-being and encouraging rehabilitation. However, inmates in remote or highly secure prisons may face significant obstacles when trying to stay connected with relatives. Long travel distances, strict visitation policies, and limited communication opportunities can make regular contact difficult. Human rights advocates often emphasize the importance of preserving family connections whenever possible. The use of disciplinary measures has also generated debate. Prison administrations rely on disciplinary systems to maintain order and respond to rule violations, but concerns arise when punishments are viewed as excessive or unnecessarily harsh. International standards generally encourage correctional systems to ensure that disciplinary practices remain proportionate, transparent, and respectful of fundamental rights. Discussions often focus on where the line should be drawn between legitimate security measures and treatment that may be considered inhumane. Transparency and independent oversight are additional areas of concern. Human rights organizations frequently argue that prisons should be subject to regular monitoring by independent bodies to ensure accountability and compliance with legal standards. Access for inspectors, journalists, legal representatives, and oversight organizations is often viewed as essential for evaluating conditions and identifying potential problems. Greater transparency can help build public trust while ensuring that prison administrations remain accountable for the treatment of inmates. Mental health has become an increasingly important aspect of the human rights conversation. The combination of isolation, strict routines, limited freedom, and lengthy sentences can create significant psychological pressures. Experts often stress the need for adequate mental health support, counseling services, and programs designed to help inmates cope with the emotional challenges of incarceration. Without such support, the long-term effects of imprisonment may become even more severe. Human rights discussions also extend beyond individual prisons to broader questions about the purpose of incarceration itself. Advocates often argue that even those convicted of serious crimes retain certain fundamental rights that should be protected during their imprisonment. This perspective emphasizes that punishment should involve the loss of liberty rather than the loss of basic human dignity. As a result, debates continue over how correctional systems can maintain security while respecting internationally recognized standards of treatment. The concerns raised by human rights groups have made Russia's prison system a frequent subject of international attention. These discussions involve complex questions about security, justice, accountability, and the responsibilities of governments toward those in their custody. The issue remains a significant part of the broader global debate over prison conditions and the treatment of incarcerated individuals. One of the most defining characteristics of Russia's most brutal prisons is the large number of inmates serving life sentences. These prisoners have been convicted of some of the most serious crimes under Russian law, including multiple murders, acts of terrorism, organized criminal activity, and other offenses considered exceptionally grave. For many of these individuals, imprisonment is not a temporary punishment, but a permanent reality that will shape every remaining year of their lives. The knowledge that freedom may never return creates a unique and often overwhelming psychological burden. Unlike prisoners serving fixed-term sentences, life-sentenced inmates often live with the understanding that there is no clear release date to look forward to. Days, months, and years pass without the expectation of returning to normal society. This absence of a foreseeable end can significantly affect how prisoners view time, their future, and their sense of purpose. While inmates with shorter sentences may count down the years until release, life prisoners often face the challenge of finding meaning in a future that remains confined within prison walls. The daily lives of life-sentence prisoners are usually governed by some of the strictest security measures in the correctional system. Many are housed in maximum security institutions where movement is carefully controlled and monitored. Their routines tend to be highly structured, with designated times for meals, exercise, inspections, and limited recreational activities. Every aspect of daily existence is regulated, creating an environment where personal freedom is extremely restricted. The emotional impact of serving a life sentence can be profound. Many inmates spend years reflecting on the choices and events that led to their imprisonment. Feelings of regret, guilt, anger, sadness, or hopelessness may become part of everyday life. For some, the realization that they may never again experience ordinary aspects of life, such as walking freely, building a career, or participating in family celebrations, can be particularly difficult to accept. The passage of time often becomes marked not by personal achievements, but by changes observed from afar through letters, news reports, or occasional visits. Family relationships frequently face enormous challenges. Long-term imprisonment can place significant strain on connections with spouses, children, parents, and friends. As years pass, maintaining close relationships becomes increasingly difficult. Children grow up, relatives age, and life outside the prison continues to change. Some inmates lose contact with loved ones altogether, while others rely heavily on letters and occasional visits to preserve important emotional bonds. For many life prisoners, these connections become a crucial source of support and stability. The physical environment of maximum security prisons can intensify the experience of serving a life sentence. Small cells, restricted movement, constant supervision, and limited interaction with the outside world reinforce the reality of permanent confinement. Over time, prisoners may become deeply familiar with every aspect of their surroundings, from the layout of their cell to the daily sounds and routines that rarely change. This repetitive environment can make the years seem both slow and difficult to distinguish from one another. Despite these hardships, many life-sentenced inmates develop strategies to cope with the passage of time. Reading, writing, education, religious practice, exercise, and creative activities often become important parts of their lives. Some dedicate themselves to learning new subjects, studying languages, or pursuing personal development within the limits of the prison environment. These activities can provide structure, intellectual stimulation, and a sense of purpose in circumstances where opportunities are otherwise limited. The experience of aging in prison presents additional challenges. As life prisoners grow older, they may face declining health, physical limitations, and increasing dependence on prison medical services. The reality of spending decades behind bars means that many inmates witness the passing of entire generations while remaining confined. Significant world events, technological advancements, and social changes occur beyond the prison walls, often creating a growing sense of separation from modern society. Life sentences also raise broader questions about punishment and rehabilitation. Some believe that certain crimes justify permanent incarceration to protect society, while others argue that every individual should retain the possibility of change and eventual reintegration. These debates continue in legal, political, and ethical discussions around the world, making life imprisonment one of the most controversial aspects of modern criminal justice systems. For those serving life sentences in Russia's most secure prisons, incarceration becomes more than a punishment. It becomes an entire way of life. The years accumulate within an environment defined by routine, restriction, and permanence, shaping every aspect of existence as inmates navigate the realities of spending the rest of their lives behind prison walls. Working inside Russia's most secure and harsh prisons is widely considered one of the most demanding roles in the entire correctional system. While much attention is often focused on the lives of inmates, the prison staff, especially guards, wardens, and support personnel, face their own set of intense physical, psychological, and emotional challenges. These professionals are responsible for maintaining order in environments where tensions are constantly present and where even small incidents can quickly escalate into serious security threats. One of the primary difficulties faced by prison staff is the constant requirement for vigilance. In maximum security facilities, where inmates may include violent offenders or individuals serving long sentences for severe crimes, every interaction must be approached with caution. Guards are trained to observe behavior closely, anticipate potential risks, and respond quickly to any signs of unrest. This continuous state of alertness can be mentally exhausting over long periods, as there is rarely a moment where full attention is not required. The prison environment itself can be highly stressful. Staff members work in enclosed, controlled spaces where the atmosphere is often tense and unpredictable. Even during routine activities such as cell inspections, meal distribution, or inmate transfers, there is always a level of risk involved. Prison officers must be prepared for emergencies at any time, including conflicts between inmates, attempts at rule violations, or unexpected security incidents. This creates a working environment where pressure is a constant companion. Another major challenge is managing interactions with inmates who may be resistant, aggressive, or psychologically unstable. Communication must be carefully balanced between authority and professionalism. Staff are trained to maintain discipline while avoiding unnecessary escalation, but this requires emotional control and strong interpersonal skills. In some cases, inmates may attempt to test boundaries or challenge authority, making it essential for officers to remain calm, firm, and consistent in their responses. The prison environment itself can be highly stressful. Staff members work in enclosed, controlled spaces where the atmosphere is often tense and unpredictable. Even during routine activities such as cell inspections, meal distribution, or inmate transfers, there is always a level of risk involved. Prison officers must be prepared for emergencies at any time, including conflicts between inmates, attempts at rule violations, or unexpected security incidents. This creates a working environment where pressure is a constant companion. Another major challenge is managing interactions with inmates who may be resistant, aggressive, or psychologically unstable. Communication must be carefully balanced between authority and professionalism. Staff are trained to maintain discipline while avoiding unnecessary escalation, but this requires emotional control and strong interpersonal skills. In some cases, inmates may attempt to test boundaries or challenge authority, making it essential for officers to remain calm, firm, and consistent in their responses. The psychological strain of working in such conditions can be significant. Over time, repeated exposure to violence, isolation, and strict control systems can affect mental well-being. Some staff members may experience stress, fatigue, or emotional detachment as a coping mechanism. The need to constantly enforce rules and maintain authority can also create a sense of pressure that extends beyond working hours, affecting personal life and relationships outside the prison environment. Physical demands are also an important part of the job. Guards may be required to stand for long periods, patrol extensive areas, escort inmates, and respond quickly to emergencies. In high-security prisons, physical readiness is essential, as situations can change rapidly and require immediate action. Staff must maintain a high level of fitness and preparedness to ensure they can perform their duties effectively under challenging conditions. Training plays a crucial role in preparing prison personnel for these challenges. Officers undergo instruction in security procedures, conflict management, legal regulations, and emergency response. They are taught how to handle high-risk situations, de-escalate conflicts, and maintain control without excessive force. Continuous training is often necessary to ensure that staff remain updated on procedures and capable of handling evolving security risks. Despite strict protocols, prison staff often face moral and ethical challenges as well. Decisions made in the course of duty can have serious consequences for both inmates and institutional safety. Balancing discipline with fairness requires careful judgment, especially in situations involving punishment, medical needs, or disciplinary action. Staff must operate within legal frameworks while also managing the realities of a highly controlled environment. The isolation of working in remote prison locations adds another layer of difficulty. Many of these facilities are situated far from urban centers, meaning staff may live in or near the prison site for extended periods. This separation from family, friends, and normal social life can contribute to feelings of isolation and limit opportunities for relaxation or recreation outside of work. Over time, the combination of stress, responsibility, and constant exposure to a controlled environment can influence how staff view their profession and the world around them. The role requires discipline, resilience, and emotional strength, as well as the ability to function effectively in conditions where pressure and risk are part of everyday life. One of the most important and complex aspects surrounding Russia's most brutal prisons is the ongoing debate over justice itself. These prisons are not only places of punishment, but also symbols of a broader philosophical and legal discussion about how societies should respond to crime. The central question remains deeply contested. Should the primary purpose of imprisonment be punishment, protection of society, or rehabilitation of the individual? In Russia's most severe correctional institutions, this debate becomes especially intense due to the strict conditions, long sentences, and highly controlled environment in which inmates live. On one side of the debate, supporters of strict sentencing and high-security prisons argue that such systems are necessary to maintain public safety. They believe that individuals who have committed extremely serious crimes, such as murder, terrorism, or organized violent offenses, pose a continuing risk to society. From this perspective, long-term or even life imprisonment is seen as a necessary measure to prevent further harm. The emphasis is placed on security, control, and deterrence, with the belief that strict punishment discourages others from engaging in similar criminal behavior. Another argument in favor of harsh prison conditions is that they reflect the severity of the crimes committed. Supporters often argue that justice requires consequences that match the seriousness of the offense. In this view, strict environments are not only about punishment, but also about maintaining order and ensuring that victims and society receive a sense of justice. The idea is that without strong consequences, the justice system may fail to uphold public trust or deter future criminal activity. On the other side of the debate, Critics argue that excessively harsh prison conditions may undermine human dignity and limit opportunities for rehabilitation. They question whether environments defined by isolation, strict control, and limited social contact can effectively help individuals change their behavior. According to this perspective, prisons should not only focus on punishment, but also on rehabilitation programs that encourage education, psychological support, and reintegration into society where possible. Without such efforts, critics argue, the cycle of crime may continue rather than be broken.